I'm also beating every N64 game, on original hardware and using no guides, just a bit of backseating from chat. All games are chosen randomly, so I have no idea what's coming next. Today we're playing another Japanese exclusive, playing Doraemon Nobita to Mittsu no Seireiseki. I really hope I got that one right. Developed and published by Epoch and released in '97, this game is the first of a trilogy of Doraemon games for the N64. Once again, this is a game I know nothing about, and while I'm somewhat familiar with Doraemon, I didn't know that there was a whole trilogy of games on the N64. And like Scooby-Doo, this is another game that's also aimed mainly at kids. So I went in expecting a very relaxing experience, and there's no twist here, it was just as easy as I expected. Also, this game has no translation, or at least I wasn't able to find it, so I had to pull out my phone's translator for it. Thankfully, there isn't a lot of text outside of the intro, so for the most part, you can easily finish the game by just trial and erroring your way through. And now you must be wondering, what's the clear condition now? Well, it's simple, we must clear the main story. Okay, so the intro cutscene goes on forever. Granted, it was mainly because I had to slowly translate every sentence, but look at this, half an hour of this stream was spent just reading. So instead, let me just give you a really quick recap of what's going on. In short, there was this demon king that was sealed away. He then of course escapes and is causing havoc in the fairy world. We then see one of the kings of the fairy world and his daughter named Corona. You know, I could have made some banger jokes some years ago, but it's a bit too late for that. Anyways, the king then sends his daughter over to the human world to see if she can find some help. Corona then scares the crap out of the kids and Doraemon by telling them that if they don't help, the Demon King is gonna take over the human world too. If the Demon King continues to destroy the fairy world, something bad might happen to the human world too. I'm starting to get scared, of course. You show up to a bunch of little kids and you start talking to them about Demon Kings and how this Demon King is gonna destroy the human world if you don't help her. Then the Demon King shows up, he starts messing with everyone, takes Doraemon's pocket, the princess goes away too, a whole mess. So then we decide to help and we go over to the fairy world. And we meet Corona again, but this time she's a tiny fairy and she cannot do much. However, she did find Doraemon's pocket. The only little problem is that the pocket is empty and Corona tells us that it's up to us to look for the rest of the gadgets. And finally we have the main objective. We must liberate the kings from each kingdom in the fairy world, and for that we must also assemble the 3 spirit stones. Each stone has been broken into multiple pieces that have been spread all over the levels of the game. Whew, that's it. And someone managed to make out what the story was despite the terrible job Google Translate was doing. We finally have control of Doraemon. Now before doing anything else, let me explain the controls. B lets you use your weapon. As of right now we don't have any, so it's a useless button. A lets us jump. Hope you guys like that sound. The C buttons let us adjust the camera. The Z button lets us crouch. And the R button does this mysterious thing where it changes this icon from A to B. I genuinely have no clue what this is for. Look, this game controls like a diet version of Mario 64. It's really hard to explain it, but if for whatever reason you find yourself playing this, you know exactly what I mean. It is also possible to play every member of the gang. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but the game won't lock you out of places for playing the wrong character. It's more of a play whoever you like the most kind of thing. The game is structured like your run-of-the-mill collectathon. There are 13 levels, and each level has its own set of items that you can obtain. There are 32 items in total, and you don't have to get all of them in order to reach the final boss and finish the game. All collectibles are items that Doraemon lost in the intro, and they are all used to unlock sections of the game as you go on. Usually, when you reach a spot that you cannot access, the game will hint you as to what the needed item is. And at this point I was still trying to use translators, but I quickly realized that I can just brute force my way around the game. Speaking of items, we now have obtained the very first one, which is a door. I think this is the item that allows us to save and also return to the tree whenever we quit a level, but I'm not really sure. Anyways, let's go over to the first level. I don't think they have names, so I'll just make stuff up as we go. So now, time for area number 1, not Bob-omb Field. As soon as we start the level, we see this little fairy character whose name I couldn't find. He tells us that a scary monster has been terrorizing everyone and that we must help. So, one more thing that I forgot, on the top left is our health. And at first I thought they were nuts or something, but turns out this is Doraemon's favorite food, dorayaki, which is a Japanese sweet that looks like a sandwich made out of 2 pancakes and sweet red bean paste in the middle. On the bottom right, there's our lives, and there are 2 ways to gain more lives. One being to defeat enemies and pick up 100 of these bell-looking things. And the other way to get more lives is to rematch bosses you've defeated. After the run back, they'll give you an extra life. Anyways, after running around for a bit, we obtain our first weapon, a gun. So now that Doraemon got his hand cannon, we can attack the peaceful wildlife that lives here. If we go a bit out of the way, we find this stopwatch that at first I thought it was for a puzzle, but it only stops time for a bit and that's it. No puzzle or anything to be done with it. It's kinda weird. We do some more platforming and it's time to fight the first boss. Tanuki? A bear? I'm not sure what it is, but it wants us dead. All they do is jump around, and to deal damage we must aim at its belly button. Staying in place and dodging at the last second does the trick. Also, I appreciate that the camera instantly locks into the boss too. After dealing enough damage we defeat the first boss and... just remember this. Whoa, holy shit! Oh my god. I wasn't really expecting them to explode like this. From now on I would rate each boss's explosions because yes, all of them explode. And we start really strong with this one. The loudness and the shock value give it an easy 10 out of 10. Anyways, we are then rewarded with the first green spiritual stone piece. I then decided to go back and redo the level because I felt I was missing something here, and I was right. There are 2 items that I could obtain. One was in the area under the floating platform, which is a sort of seed bag, and the other one is a reward for beating the Tanuki, a pair of boxing gloves. At first I was a bit confused because I wasn't able to really equip these boxing gloves, but a bit later I ended up learning that the kids can also have their own weapons. I don't really know the names of the kids, but the boxing gloves are for this kid. And the boxing gloves do the most damage out of all the weapons, with the only drawback being that you have to get really close for them to hit. After running around and trying to figure out where to go, we find this dragon looking thing, and I believe they wanted a bag of seeds, so now we can go on to the next level. Area number 2, it's another field, but with a dragon this time. Before I mention anything about this level, all I have to say is this stage has a banging soundtrack, just listen to it. In this level we get to ride the dragon. It's pretty fast and it has a tail swipe attack, but that's about it. A bit further into the level we find a poison river, which will of course damage you. After finding the way through the poison river, there's this tiny jump puzzle, and we also find this area with an empty nest and a chest that gives us something. I was then running around in circles because I felt that something was left to do. Near the start of the level there's this wall that seems like a dead end, but it's actually a door. And someone starts talking to us from the other side. The door opens to reveal this stage's boss, a giant mouse. The mouse takes off and now we must race him. Or so I thought. It's not really a race, you just have to go back to the nest. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. The mouse will then reward us with the next greenstone. Neat. Anyways, remember the weird tube thing that we got? It seems that it helps us breathe underwater. We now have the entire water section unlocked. This part has a lot to do, but we cannot access most stages as we are missing the items. There's only one area we can go, and it's area number 3. The ocean? So this entire level is underwater, and you would expect the swimming controls to be horrible, but it's surprisingly responsive. It never really becomes an obnoxious water level as it's tradition back in the day. And not long after starting we find a flashlight. I'm also very thankful that there's no oxygen meter. Being able to stay underwater indefinitely makes this part so much more enjoyable to go through. After swimming through some caves, we find this lone chest which contains a microphone. This seems to be another one of the kids' weapons. And a bit further in the bottom there's another chest with a blanket. Not sure what the use for this will be at all. There's these 2 little fairies inside that have a tiny mission for us. One of them asks us to find his friend, and after finding them they will raise the water level. Funnily enough though, I didn't notice this happening, so I spent like 10 minutes just killing sea creatures until I realized the water level was raised. Anyways, eventually I noticed that I can access this little platform where the first blue piece is. Anyways, out of the level we go. Underwater there's this buggy, and at first I thought I needed some kind of tools to repair it, or an engine or something. But it seems like the blanket we obtained was the solution. You know, I won't really argue with this logic. Now it's time for area number 4, the underwater race. So now it's an actual race level. We're in the buggy and we must race this happy torpedo. It's a pretty straightforward level. You go from point A to B and you have to win the race. The buggy is really fast and controls really well too. You do have to be careful though, because if you hit a wall it will fully stop you, and the acceleration on this thing isn't very good. There's also a bunch of jellyfish that I believe can hurt you or stop you if you hit them. I'm not really sure because I never really crashed into any of them honestly. After beating the torpedo we are given what looks like a container with submarine written on it. This is maybe for that one big hole in the overworld. And guess what, I was right. We now have access to area number 5, not Dire Docks. Unlike Dire Docks, this zone's soundtrack is really intense compared to what actually happens in here. And of course, as you probably guessed by now, it's another water level, but there's this huge pirate ship in the center. If you go inside of the ship, there's a couple of crabs that you can defeat. After you take them out, a door opens, revealing a switch and a lot of chests. However, most of them are mimic chests. I can see where the Souls games got their inspiration now. I don't think there's a way to tell which one is a fake chest, so I just tested them all out. Eventually one of them was the real one, and it had a beam. The switch, on the other hand, extends the bridge and takes you to a higher part of the level. Once we get up there, there's a chest, and inside this chest there's a pair of slippers. It also seems that it is possible to shoot the stalactites, which causes them to drop to the bottom level. There's this one stalactite, however, that we cannot really seem to reach, so maybe we must come back with another item. We also find another one of the little fairies that explains that his friend is trapped under the boat and that we must find a way to raise the water level. We then spent a lot of time running in circles trying to figure out how to drop the final stalactite. Eventually we just left the stage, we'll come back another time. So next to the tree at the start, there's this huge boulder that we can remove using something. I'm not really sure what it was, but hey, the boulder is gone. Area number 6. The ruins? The little fairy at the start gives us a hint about how to proceed. It's a small puzzle that took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out. Also, a thing to note is that the switches don't activate unless you do a full jump. Doing tiny jumps won't do the trick. After opening the doors, we go inside this cave that has a tree in the middle and a bunch of bees guarding it, and on top of it there's a chest. I decided to leave it for later though, and instead I just ran all the way to the top of the level where a giant kappa looking monster was waiting for us, which we then just completely ignored. And it seems like he was guarding another piece of the green spirit stone. After that, we decided to go back and pick up any missing items in the level. The first one is the one from the tree. The platforming looked intimidating, but we managed to get it without many issues. Then I went to the top and I ended up failing some platforming, and I ended up underwater where another chest happened to be, and in there we found a ring. We head back to the area near the dragon, and we use the beam to run the beanstalk so we can access the sky area. Up here we can see another dragon and also a castle, the castle from the intro cutscene where Corona is from. However, we can't really use the dragon and the castle is inaccessible, so there's only one option for us. We must go to the part with the floating platforms. It's time for area number 7, not Rainbow Ride. And just like Rainbow Ride, this stage also has some pretty tricky platforming to it. And if you're really unlucky, enemies can also knock you over, but as long as you ignore them, you should be fine. After a while, we end up reaching another tree, and on top of it, there's a chest. Same as before, we go up and open the chest and we get a measuring cup? I'm not sure what this is either. We then have some surprisingly difficult platforming to reach the top of the level. We are then quickly interrupted by what I believe is a harpy. It's boss time. She doesn't seem to have a weak point, so shooting anywhere does the trick. Also, for some reason the camera won't lock in on this boss, which is kind of annoying. She has 2 attacks, one where she will try to hit you with her talons, and a projectile attack that shoots some clouds at you. They are both reasonably easy to dodge, but you want to take a shot after the talon attack, as she's the most vulnerable after that. It is also very easy to lose rhythm and find yourself getting hit over and over. I almost lost all my health here too, but we were able to defeat her. She crashes head first into the ground and has a pretty lame explosion. There's no way I could lose to a kid like that. This must be a dream. It must be a dream. Whoa, she exploded. I would give it a 4 out of 10. Nowhere near as cool as the Tanuki. We are rewarded with the first red spirit stone fragment. I then restarted the level to get anything I missed. And under the falling platforms I found a sponge. And on the other side of the big platform with the tree, there was a set of handlebars. We head out and go to a set of big doors that we couldn't access until now. Not sure what opens them though, but that's our next stop. Area number 8, not Lava Land. After defeating a couple of Jawas, a door opens and we see one of the kings was petrified or frozen, who knows, but we must save him. We venture further down and we're attacked by a bunch of wizards that we gladly ignore. And there's 2 little fairies that open a path for us too. In the very center of the volcano, there's this mini volcano mini-boss that we must defeat before moving forward. It didn't seem like guns did anything, so I ended up picking the kid with the boxing gloves and made quick work of the volcano. We then ended up finding another room full of mimic chests, and one of them had a green key in it, used to open the door with the huge green crystal on it. Oh look, it's time for another boss, a Minotaur this time. Boss has a huge AoE attack that I didn't seem to be able to dodge at all. Took so much damage getting hit by every single swing of it too. Thankfully, this being such an easy game, you take little to no damage from hits, so you have a lot of time to adapt to each boss. I decided to try other characters, but I ended up picking the chubby kid with the microphone. I then started jumping on the boss's head. This seemed to damage him, so we repeated this strategy over and over until the end. Whoa! He has exploded! Nice, that was sick. Bigger explosion! I give it a 9 out of 10. After that, the Petrified King seems to be back to normal, and he then goes on about how we must now save the other Petrified Kings and so on. Also, according to Google Translate, he also talked a lot about the Holy Spirit, but I think that's just Google Translate not knowing how to translate Doraemon lore. Anyways, we go back up the beanstalk to talk to the dragon, who then allows us to ride on their back. Area number 9, the autoscroller. It's painfully slow. All we can do is move around and shoot. But the shooting seems to not be working because it feels impossible to defeat anything at all with it. You can only really damage the really big birds, and even then it seems like it's better to just avoid damage. We eventually reach the top where we find a chest that contained another red crystal fragment. I then decided to go back to Not Dire Dogs to see if we can destroy the stalactites. And turns out that if we use the girl's grenades, we can reach the last one that I wasn't able to reach. So in the end, I could have done this much earlier. This raises the water level, and now we have access to the bottom part of the boat. We find the fairies that were trapped down here, and as a thanks, they tell us to check behind the waterfall as there might be a secret behind it. There are also 3 chests here, 2 of them being mimics. And inside this chest we get something that looks like a nail gun. We then head to the waterfall, as stated by the little guy, and back here is a switch that extends a bridge that leads to the top part of the boat, where that mysterious fire was. Speaking of that fire, it is revealed that it is a spooky skeleton pirate. The game should have warned the player before such a disturbing reveal. He flies around and shoots fire at us, however we have to change back to Doraemon because her grenades are just horrible for this fight. And I almost forgot, he also has this attack where he throws his hook at us. The strategy is to wait until he either stops moving or he shoots his hook, and then punish the recovery. We repeat this process over and over, and eventually the spooky skeleton pirate will go down. Oh, he's exploding too! This is so loud. This is so loud, man. Wow, that was a nuke. This is one sick explosion. I think it deserves a 10 out of 10 for how long it is, and also for the huge explosion at the end too. And we are then rewarded with another blue crystal. Neat. Spent some time lost after this. I started revisiting levels like the very first one, where we got an extra life after defeating the Tanuki again. At least we get to see the explosion a second time. But after a while of running in circles, I ended up back at the buggy race. This time the torpedo is faster. And it's actually difficult now. I don't see how a kid would have been able to beat this, honestly. The torpedo is way faster, so the game put a bunch of boosters around to help you out. And in fact, I actually lost on my first attempt. I wasn't used to the speed and I actually felt like I was in a rush. But the second one we were able to beat him, and this time we get a blue crystal for it. So one thing I want to bring up right now is that I have just one complaint, and it's that there's no real way to keep track of your crystals. You have a book that you can consult where you can keep track of the items you get, but there's no way of knowing which crystals you have without quitting the game and checking your progress on the file select screen. Anyways, it seems that now we have access to an ice cave area of sorts, so that's our next destination. Area 10, the ice cave. We find another petrified king in here, so we know what our task is. After a small enemy encounter, the drawbridge lowers, giving us access to the rest of the level. In one of the rooms of the castle we find 3 chests, and you know how this goes. Usually one will be the correct one and the rest are mimics. And the one that's not a mimic has a blue key inside. And honestly, the rest of the castle is super uneventful. From here, all you have to do is just to go all the way to the door that the blue key opens. And the boss of this level is Evil Santa, and he is accompanied by a bunch of little snowmen that you can take out. And he only seems to have 3 attacks: an ice beam, an explosive AoE attack, and a snowman summon attack. I would say the trickiest attack is the snowman summons, because as the fight goes on, they become bigger and harder to deal with. But in the end, the strat is always the same. Wait for an opening, shoot and repeat until they go down. Yeah, there's a lot of guaranteed damage. Oh, he's exploding? Oh, there we destroyed Santa. So this explosion is good, but not as good. I would give it an 8. And we also got something that kinda looks like a tablet. And now the blue king is free, and he more or less has the same stuff as the green one. Only one king left to save. I then spent a decent amount of time backtracking as I was totally stuck. I felt like something was missing, but I had no idea what it could be. But eventually, after going back to not Lava Land, I realized that I missed a chest that I ignored because I thought it was a mimic. In here we got A mountain? I also decided to do the painful auto-scroller again, as I felt maybe something else could be obtained here, since that already happened in the torpedo stage. Maybe this one would also have a second item for doing it again. And I was right, I got some helicopter rotor thingies in the end. And this actually unlocked a new level for us. Area 11, Rain Cloud level. I don't even have a joke for this one. So now we can fly using the helicopter rotors, and we gotta go from cloud to cloud until we reach the end of the level. We also find a little fairy along the way, and he drops a chest for us. Inside the chest, it's what looks like a bug spray. We continue flying and we end up reaching the moon where we get a piece of the red crystal. I find ending in the moon to be a really nice touch. The game is super bare bones and all, but something about ending like this felt cute. I decided to try going back to the castle since it felt that I could now, and I was right. Again, at the entrance we find the king, Corona's dad actually, and we are going to most likely have to fight a boss in the end. This level has a surprising amount of combat in it, and some of the chests require you to take out some enemies to make your life easier. The very first chest we find has this odd looking thing inside. The second one has us fight a bunch of enemies, and the platforms also slowly raise as you jump on them. It actually took me quite a bit of time to realize that I had to jump on them one after the other for them to go up. This chest had the red key. Eventually we reached the red door, did some more platforming and reached the boss. A centaur! I have to admit I spent a long time figuring this boss out. It seemed like he was taking no damage at all. Jumping didn't work, guns didn't work, and even the punching attack didn't work. I even spent a long time just punching the boss, thinking that he was eventually gonna go down. I actually lost all my lives and had to restart the game because I just didn't understand what the strategy was. But turns out all you have to do is to bait the boss into charging into a wall. You repeat this a couple of times and then the boss gets angrier and faster, but the strategy doesn't change. And as usual, you repeat this over and over and the centaur will go down. Damn, my sudden attack to take it upside down. Whoa. That was kinda shit actually, I kinda like the other explosions more. Very underwhelming explosion for such a difficult boss, 3 out of 10. I then wasn't sure if I was missing anything else, so I went around some of the previous levels to see if I missed anything, but after teleporting back I noticed this light right next to the tree that I missed a couple of times while backtracking. Area 13, not Bowser? So here's the Demon King, and he looks straight up like Bowser. This game is just not beating the Super Mario 64 copy allegations at this point. But whatever he is, we must put a stop to him. He's got a lot of attacks, and he's gonna cycle through them in the same order every single time. So, he has a Fire Breath, a Fireball attack, a Shield attack that if you shoot will cause him to teleport, he has an Ice attack and an Ice AoE attack. And as I mentioned, he's gonna cycle through them in this exact order. In order to damage him, you must shoot his pendant. So now let me give you some pro strats. The optimal way of dodging his attacks was to always circle to the left and to shoot after the regular ice attack, because if you ran to the opposite direction you would almost always get hit by the ice attack, since he would always shoot it first with his left hand. After what felt like forever, phase 2 begins, because yes, this also has a phase 2. He is now faster and cycles through the same attacks, however he has some new ones. One being a huge fire AoE attack, a big lightning attack, a beam attack similar to his fireball, and finally an attack where he puts a bunch of glyphs on the floor that also damage you. Same as before, you want to wait until the ice attack to shoot him. It's a very slow process, but as long as you stay patient, it shouldn't be an issue. I was actually kinda curious and checked the walkthrough, and turns out people use the boxing kit for this. His DPS is just really high, but I wasn't comfortable getting that close to the boss. He did it. He's gonna explode! It was a pretty decent explosion, but not a final boss explosion. I give it a 7 out of 10. And with that, the Demon King was sealed again. Corona has been turned back to normal, and the king thanks us for our bravery and for liberating the fairy world from the Demon King. However, we are warned that the Demon King might at any moment attempt to take his revenge. And with that, the game is over. We are also greeted with a nice little surprise. Corona is now a playable character, but honestly I don't think I'll be playing this any longer. It's a fun little game, it's very easy. The only difficulties I encountered were due to me not speaking the language, so it was really easy for me to get stuck while I brute forced my way through the puzzles. It's hard for me to give proper criticisms to these kinds of games because at the end of the day I was never the target audience. But I'm pretty sure that there are people around my age that grew up playing these Doraemon games and love them to bits. And after playing this, I'm really looking forward to eventually play the rest of the trilogy. And with that, I consider Doraemon Nobita to Mittsu no Seireiseki completed. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe as it helps the channel a lot. I'm also always open to feedback, and I'm always looking to improve from one video to the next. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all a great day. Now, what's coming next? Are we gonna get lucky? Are we gonna get unlucky? Who knows? Number 9. Oh my god. Let's go. Doom 64? Yo. That's actually sick.